Namaskar, good morning, Pranam, Johar. I cannot express in words, I am so pleased today to see such luminaries amongst us at the Press Club of Odisha. And I have been given the task by Anant Nath, the President of Editors Guild of India, to welcome all the distinguished guests and also the distinguished audience, students, teachers, businessmen, public relations personnel, all the people who matter in Bhubaneswar and Orissa. When I start thanking, my first thank will go to two people who are very close to me, because of whose constant support the Press Club has survived and it is thriving. That is Annapurna Madam and Jayashish Sir, who sit here in the front row. I will thank Anant Babu, the President of Editors Guild of India, and his team, who have helped in formulating the program and putting up this show. And of course, one cannot but thank Ruben Banerjee, the persona who's little bit like a mirchi, little bit like a salt, and like a drop of lemon. So he adds the taste to everything. I, on behalf of the Press Club of Odisha, also welcome Mr. N. Ram, the former editor-in-chief of The Hindu. It is not only a paper from Chennai, but it is a national daily. And while I was in Delhi, they started printing from Delhi, and I used to subscribe to the paper because I thought, and I still think, that is a paper that makes you think. I would also welcome Mr. Sanjay Hegde, who is yet to come here. He's probably having a little, he came in late, so he will come in late here. He came in late last night. Mr. Paranjay Thakurta, who's a young revolutionary, a writer, a poet. He produces, now lately he's producing songs that can be called patriotic, in a sense that it is meant for the real India that is Bharat. It is not the other kind of India that is Bharat, but the other kind of India that is Bharat. So Paranjay is well known in his circle. The subject matter, opportunities and challenges in regional media, is a subject that when I first read it, and when Anant was kind enough to send it to me, I thought about it, and I started wondering that before 1947, India was not what we see in the map. It was not Kashmir to Kanyakumari by any chance. There were so many kingdoms, so many royalties, and so many pieces. There was British India. Prior to that, the Mughals had a part of India, and the south was different, the north was different, the west was somewhere else. And interestingly, those who are aware of Orissa's history, they know that from the days of Kalinga, Orissa was neither under the Chandragupta Maurya. From that time onwards, it was not under them till Ashoka, one of the last Mauryan kings, before the eclipse of that empire, till he had the Kalinga war and he tried to occupy Kalinga. It was free from the Mauryan Empire. It was free from the Mughal Empire. It was free of the British. The British never directly ruled Orissa. We had 26 or 27 Rajas and Maharajas who were ruling us, and there used to be one white man who would be going around 5-7 kings' courts and selling them Rolls-Royce cars and weapons and things like that, mostly in relation to trade, but never really, they didn't govern, they never had their army here. And so this land has a lot of uniqueness about it. It has a history that is very different from many other parts of India. We have been a tolerant race. We have never been, how would I put it? We've never been full of hate for anybody. We may be hating each other. That's fine. That's actually welcome in a way. It's a healthy thing, because sometimes hate spurs you on to do things. But we have generally not been a hateful crowd. And those who have come to Orissa, they feel that this is a unique land which has a lot of history, mostly unrecorded, and it is a state that is capable of giving leadership to the whole country when the time comes. Our youth, they are educated, they are intelligent, and one of the most remarkable things is when all other states, except the southern states, when all other states have been burgeoning with their population, Orissa's population has been very much under control, and it is a state which has mineral resources, which has enough abundant natural endowments. And lately we know that in the month of October, actually a lot of Odias like me also, I feel sad if there is no cyclone in October. I feel, what happened? We are missing out on life. And so that also, Lord Jagannath, Ma Samaleswari, they were so kind on us. They did give us a little sampling of a cyclone. Dana asikri dana bandila. Kintu dana bandikri bhi kichi bises kheti karini. It didn't damage too much. It passed us by, and we had a beautiful, we are having good weather. The rain has been a little bit of a bothersome thing, but anyway, we are used to it. We are, so regional, when I was talking about regional media, I was wondering, what is regional? Like I started off, I veered off somewhere else. There is no national media here. There is no national leader here. In this country, everybody is regional. We all belong to different regions. When we get together, we form the nation. Calling only English the national media, any media that is in English, or any leader who speaks in English can be a national leader, or any newspaper or television channel that is in English can be a national media. I do not agree with that. I believe that regionalism is unlimited. Everybody is regional, and everybody has a role to play in the total framework of the nation. Before I wind up, I would like to thank the editor of Samaj, Mr. Tapan Mishra, who took all the trouble to be with us this morning on this rainy day, in spite of his personal problems, family problems, health problems. And I would also like to thank the editor of Sambad, Ms. Tanaya Patnaik, who is the youngest editor in Orissa today. And I would like to thank anybody else that I have forgotten, those who are here. And all our panelists, Navin Babu, Manoranjan Babu has not come. Acha, Manonjan Babu is there, Jajati Babu is there, all our panelists are here. Sanjay ji has come, Mr. Sanjay Hegde, senior counsel from the Supreme Court. So all the panelists are here, all the speakers are here. I'm very happy. The success, I would now label it 100%. I hope you will agree. So in the beginning, when we start, we have Mr. N. Ram, the former editor-in-chief of Hindu, who would be addressing all of you. Let me read a few lines about Mr. Ram. Mr. Ram is a distinguished Indian journalist and former editor-in-chief of the Hindu, one of India's most respected English language newspapers. Known for his fearless and principled approach to journalism, he has played a pivotal role in shaping investigative journalism in India. Ram is celebrated for his coverage of major political and social issues, including the Bofors. That's where I noticed him, and I became a great fan of N. Ram. And that scandal, I think all of you may not have been born then or may not remember. That scam brought down a big prime minister, and it brought about a great change in Indian politics. It exposed the corruption at the highest level, at the prime minister's level. An advocate, N. Ram, an advocate for, what happened? An advocate for press freedom, he has consistently championed the values of transparency and accountability in media. His extensive experience and commitment to ethical journalism make him a highly respected voice in the Indian media landscape. This little note that I made, and I got some assistance from colleagues, is not enough to explain who Ram is. I think when all of you listen to him, you will yourself be able to judge his depth and his understanding of things, not only of the past, but what's going to happen in the future, not only of yesterday, but of tomorrow. So I would like to invite Mr. N. Ram on stage to deliver his address. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be at this conclave at the invitation of the President of the Editors Guild of India and the President of the Press Club of Odisha. And last evening we had a very pleasant conversation on issues that matter, especially issues relating to the media, at a get-together hosted by Mr. Satpathy. So I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to express relief that Cyclone Dana made landfall and that the damage and destruction, although quite considerable, was contained through quick action by all the concerned. And our hearts go out to the hundreds of thousands of people whose lives were disrupted. The damage was considerable, I was told, in some parts of Orissa. We don't have the full picture yet, but it was contained, and I think that is a matter for some relief. I want to start out by saying that I agree with Mr. Satpathy that the term regional media is a bit out of place, because I fully agree with him. There's nothing called the national media, because earlier that was a code word for the English language press. which actually did not circulate in every part of the country, although it has spread its wings. So I think the more useful term would be Indian language newspapers or the Indian language media. And the rise of the Indian language press, in particular newspapers, was researched and analyzed by my friend, the political scientist Robin Jeffrey, in his landmark book, India's Newspaper Revolution, published in 2000. It came out, Oxford University Press, in 2000, and since then it has been revised. Before that, he wrote a number of articles for the Economic and Political Weekly on the dynamism, in contrast to what was happening in many other countries. After the late 1970s, the Indian language press took off and they became mass newspapers. I think Odisha was very much part of this trend. Circulations skyrocketed, and Professor Jeffrey, who's based in Australia, begins with a proclamation. A revolution in Indian language newspapers began in the late 1970s. And I quote, "It was little noticed by India's English language elite and virtually unknown outside India. Now it's much better known, partly thanks to Jeffrey's scholarship on the growth of successful newspapers in about a dozen or so Indian languages, which of course includes Orissa." He highlighted a lively and buoyant situation where essentially 5 factors played a key role. 1, improved technology, which enabled the production and distribution of large numbers of more attractive newspapers. 2, steadily expanding literacy. 3, better purchasing power. And 4, aggressive publishing. And finally, and that's what's called the Crimean War factor, political excitement. Whether it's good or bad for the country, if there is excitement in politics, if there's turbulence, if there are striking developments, it has been well established that newspapers and other media grow. You saw the phenomenon in the United States when Trump was the president. It was called the Trump bump, including newspapers that are very critical of Donald Trump, President Donald Trump at that point, like the New York Times. They took advantage of this because Trump was quite an exciting character, although very, very strange character as a politician, so far as newspapers are concerned. All these things come out in the research of Robin Jeffrey and some others about the dynamism and the factors behind the growth of Indian language newspapers. And of course, television, news television, is another story, a parallel story which again took off in the 80s and 90s and thereafter. But today, a quarter century after Robin Jeffrey published this important book, which in a sense it both analyzed and celebrated the rise of or what is called India's newspaper revolution, the scenario has clearly changed, has evolved and clearly changed profoundly. And we need to, nobody I think has all the data on this. The research has not really been done about the changes that came thereafter, comparable to what Jeffrey was able to document in his book, which basically dealt with the post-emergency period up to the late 90s. The situation has clearly changed. The transformation has been striking. The challenges are tough. And I know that this conclave has been planned, to some extent at least, to register and exchange ideas and insights on these challenges. But these challenges are also, as the cliche goes, opportunities, and there will be transitions that lie ahead. We just do not have, as far as I know, enough information and data on various factors, various facets of these challenges, these opportunities, and the transitions that lie ahead across India's vast, diverse, and uneven media ecosystem. But I think a lot of people say that the situation is very dire, that we are into a second emergency and so on. It's bad enough. The authoritarianism, the assaults directed at the news media in India, and India deservedly ranks where it does. I'll come to that in a minute. In rankings of press freedom put out by various independent organizations. I know the Press Council chairperson, Justice Ranjana Desai, has a problem with this. Earlier chairpersons of the Press Council of India also contested it. I think it's a wrong thing for the Press Council chair to do, that take issue and kind of go out there and indulge in polemics, questioning the methodology. The methodology has been laid out very clearly in the reports, but that's another matter. But India deservedly ranks, I think, where it does in these international rankings. But that's not the emergency. Mr. Satpathy and I know the emergency. There are others also here, senior journalists and editors who lived through that. And it was different. There was total censorship. The political situation perhaps was not as bad as it is today, but so far as the newspapers were concerned, there was total censorship. You could hardly write anything outside. Even blank pages were not allowed. And I don't think we need to exaggerate the situation, because that would only lower spirits. It won't be true, but it will also lower spirits. I think there are plenty of spaces, plenty of voices in the vast, uneven, diverse Indian media ecosystem that speak up. And after the ground shifted under Mr. Modi's feet as a result of the last general election, where they lost the majority, I think these voices, I was discussing it with some friends yesterday, they said the same thing independently. And I think the conduct of, or the behavior of certain institutions, including the judiciary, also in the media and elsewhere, I think more voices, more independent voices are beginning to sound, which we didn't hear earlier. So I think the situation is not as dire as was made out. Nevertheless, it is bad enough. The BJP government at the center and also certain state governments have conducted targeted assaults on freedom of expression, on media freedom and independence, and other fundamental rights. They have used, the central government in particular has used anti-terror, sedition, and other draconian laws to incarcerate without bail or trial. And there are distinguished lawyers and also former judge will be here later on. We look forward to that discussion as well. For prolonged periods, they incarcerate without bail or trial journalists, students, human rights defenders, civil society activists, and troublesome critics of the government. And the post-2014 downslide in media freedom, I referred to this earlier, in media freedom and independence, has seen India sink from the rank of 140 out of 180 countries in 2014 to 159, that's the latest ranking, in 2004, among 180 countries and territories in the World Press Freedom Index published by Reporters Without Borders. The central government has made a concerted effort to police and censor the internet, the social media, technology platforms that deliver streamed content via internet-connected devices known as OTT platforms, and also digital news providers. It has almost certainly conducted illegal surveillance against a large number of journalists, along with politicians, civil society activists, and other selected targets by deploying NSO Group's military-grade software, Pegasus. The matter is pending before the Supreme Court of India, and I'm a petitioner in this case, so I will say no more about it. Shockingly, in the decade 2014 to 2024, 19 journalists have been murdered in connection with their work across India, compared with 11 during the previous decade, which was bad enough. Since 1992, the New York-based Independent Committee to Protect Journalists, known as CPJ, has meticulously, after careful inquiry and strict verification, documented the work-related killing of journalists worldwide. And over the past decade, India has been described as one of the most dangerous places for journalists, especially investigative reporters, to do their job. Research suggests that communal and other forms of divisive politics and social polarization across India have made an already bad situation worse. But this is not all. Since 2008, CPJ has been publishing an annual Global Impunity Index. The Global Impunity Index is a quantified ranking of countries where journalists are murdered, the cases remain unsolved, and no conviction has been obtained. In other words, whatever be the claim, the rule of law does not apply when journalists are murdered in the course of their work. I'm not talking about private disputes, property disputes, and so on, where some journalists may be attacked or murdered even. But these are murdered in connection with their work, because of their work, in the course of their work, and this is well documented. I regret to say that year after year, India finds itself among the dozen or so countries that figure in the Global Impunity Index. In fact, India is a founding and permanent member, it seems, of this club of shame. This is a very serious matter, and recently, a very fine journalist, Gurbir Singh, who was a member of the Press Council of India, wrote a long report documenting this, going back, and the figures he gives are quite shocking. But the chairperson of the Press Council of India has seen it her duty to contest each and every one, virtually, of these assertions or these statements by Gurbir Singh in a very long note. So if you go to the website of the Press Council of India, you'll see the gap between what journalists want, they're documenting it accurately or trying to do it, they give the sources, but a stance has been taken by unfortunately, by the chairpersons, not just this one, of the Press Council of India, contesting this or raising questions about methodology and so on, and this matter has to be, I would suggest for students of journalism and researchers, this is an area that should be looked into seriously. These are areas that require serious discussion in fora like this, in conclaves like this. I want to compliment my friend, my young friend, Anant Nath, President of the Editors Guild of India, and also the last 2 or 3 presidents and with their teams for taking up the issues immediately. If you want one body of journalists that responds quickly, at least in form of statements, I think it is the Editors Guild of India. I have not had any in-depth association with the Editors Guild of India except to support or read their statements and so on. But if you go to the website, I don't think they have a good enough website though. Maybe Anant can do something about it. But you'll learn a lot. So I really want to commend this. People shouldn't feel helpless or defenseless because there are bodies, there are press clubs, good press clubs. Sometimes the press clubs get involved in factionalism and so on. And Chennai is an example of that. We are still trying to reform it. But you obviously have a very good press club going with a lot of cooperation among both seniors and younger people. But I think these efforts are important. The work of associations of working journalists, the Editors Guild of India and the Press Club, if they all get together, the kind of the resistance which seems sporadic at this point of time can become more organized, more concerted, and more effective. And just as the political situation compelled the government to withdraw the broadcast bill, I think we can win battles like that, or particularly on attempts to police the internet and other legislative initiatives that may be in the offing. So I'm much more hopeful about what can be done to push back authoritarianism directed at the media and journalists than many others, because we used to hear these dire assessments and forecasts of what may lie ahead. One other factor before I move on to, I had a discussion and I was told there would be a lot of interest in the likely impact of artificial intelligence, particularly generative artificial intelligence, Gen AI as it's called, on the media. It's an area of great interest, and perhaps there's not been enough discussion on this in India, although elsewhere there's quite a literature on this subject. Let me now move on to, because time is limited and there are many other sessions to come, to the subject of generative artificial intelligence and its relevance to and impact on the news media and journalism. My observations are partly based on the Hindu's experience, also the experience of some other newspapers like the Times of India and the Hindustan Times. Also on, I had a conversation with my friend Pranoy Roy about Decoder, his new initiative, which is AI powered, and we have a general idea of what is happening. The general claim is that Gen AI presents attractive opportunities for the news media with the promise of making our work easier and better, taking the drudgery out and improving productivity. This would allow journalists to focus on the most significant part of their work. Here I want to digress about what journalism is about for a few minutes, because I think it's very important to have a conceptual framework about what this is all about. What are the central tasks of journalism? One, what are its functions or roles? One can be, without going into excessive detail, let me list them. I think the two central functions are, one, the credible informational function. There has to be trust. You have to build credibility. Credibility doesn't always mean you're always right, but basically, and this is built over the long term, there is trust among readers or viewers or listeners. Find you credible or trustworthy, at least prima facie. It doesn't mean that they rely on you for everything, But this is a central function without which no newspaper, no news television channel, no news radio station, or digital news provider will be able to sustain itself. There are those which are purely propaganda agents, and I don't think they have a great long-term future. That's central function number one. But it's not enough to be credible, to provide credible information. There is a second central function, which is a critical function. By whatever name called, you're critical, you're analytical, you're investigative, you take on a watchdog role if you like, but it goes deeper than merely reporting the facts and so on in a credible way. So it's a critical function, it's an analytical function, it's an investigative function. And it also it tries to make sense. And related to these functions are derivatives, like providing a forum for different views to come together to contend. And the old theory that, you get to the truth if you allow opposing points of view to clash, going back to Milton and so on, that is at play, that all serious media provide a forum for discussion, for debate, for controversies within a certain framework, if possible in a civil way. And then you have an agenda building function, not in a negative sense, but a virtuous agenda. The mass hunger in Kalahandi district, earlier there were stories about the sale of girls for 20 rupees and so on, which were investigated. Later on they found that some of that was exaggerated, but stories like that, where the newspaper gets onto a campaign in a virtuous sense, and then an agenda is built. Public opinion begins to change. People respond. Authorities are forced to intervene in some way. So I think there is that function. When you talk about the sex ratio at birth, about which Professor Amartya Sen and others made important interventions several years ago, where India has a poor record along with China and others. I'm talking about, sex ratio at birth, and so on literacy campaigns, and all these things, the news media can play a very important role. And I think to some extent in India, sections of the Indian language press as well as also other English language newspapers have played this role against hunger as crisis, so on. So that's an agenda building role. But of course, you also have other functions like the entertainment function, and people are beginning to talk about the propaganda role, the manufacture of consent. So I just want to give you an idea that there's a huge literature on this question, and younger journalists need to have a conceptual framework for doing their journalism. Otherwise, what's it all about? Is it just to get a salary? You'll get better salaries in most other sectors. You do better in many other sectors. So why do you want to become a journalist? Unless there is some idealism, unless you want to make a difference in society. I think that idea to strengthen that and empower yourself, I think you need conceptual framework. Now, coming back to the subject of artificial intelligence and related factors, the claim is that Gen AI would allow journalists to focus on what really matters and what are the basic tasks of journalism today. Verification, bearing witness, investigation, and sense-making. You take these four as the core tasks within the framework I mentioned as essential to journalism, at least journalism's claimed classical mission of holding the powerful to account, ensuring fairness and justice. So is that claim true, that generative AI would free journalists to concentrate on this. We already know that Gen AI poses new, complex, and formidable challenges to the media and to journalism, especially to its core values. Let me now also digress again a little to look at a phenomenon that has had a widespread disruptive impact in the complex media ecosystem much before artificial intelligence came to the fore. And this is the global challenge of disinformation. Misinformation and disinformation are not new. They have been around for a very long time. In fact, much before journalism became a modern profession. What is new is the nature and scale of disinformation, especially online disinformation, which does not respect national borders. I would suggest that India and the United States are among the countries most affected by disinformation on an industrial scale. We saw its effects during the run-up to the 2024 Lok Sabha election and also the assembly elections. And just this week, the New York Times published a news analysis titled, "As Election Looms, Disinformation Has Never Been Worse." The reporter, Stephen Lee Myers, who has extensively covered the impact of disinformation on US electoral politics, writes, and I quote, "Smears, lies, and dirty tricks, what we call disinformation today, have long been a feature of American presidential election campaigns. 2 weeks before this year's vote, that is November 5. However, the torrent of half-truths, lies, and fabrications, both foreign and homegrown, has exceeded anything that came before, according to officials and researchers who document disinformation. For example, Kamala Harris has been falsely accused of sexually molesting students with a faked AI-created video that purported to show a victim receiving this video received more than 5 million viewers on X, formerly known as Twitter, which is now owned by Elon Musk. I mention this because very often there is confusion about what the term fake news is not quite accurate. The term, I think it's important to make a clear and actionable differentiation between disinformation, which is deliberate and motivated, and misinformation, which is not intentional and is typically a result of reporting or editing failure that can be corrected easily. So far as the media are concerned, misinformation happens, inaccuracies are published, and they can be corrected or they should be corrected. And it's quite easy to correct them. But both types of inaccurate and false information can cause harm, even significant harm. But it is clear that it is disinformation that presents the big threat, scaled up and weaponized on the search, messaging, and social networking platforms that are operated by the technology companies. Disinformation causes great harm to democracy, to media freedom and independence and its credibility, and in charged socio-political settings, to human lives and welfare as well. Witness the lynchings of Muslims in different parts of India. Fortunately, they've been contained in recent times, but there have been plenty of instances because of what is posted on the social media, particularly WhatsApp groups, which are closed. AI's easy accessibility to anyone with a smartphone means that disinformation and misinformation can be instantly disseminated on social media platforms. Depending on the socio-political circumstances, motivated fake news, as disinformation is popularly known, can find wide acceptance in society and in the polity before encountering a measure of resistance from credible professional media and from standalone fact-checking organizations. Fortunately, we have an excellent fact-checking organizations operating on a slim budget, small team, alt news, and also there is Boom, and then you have fact-checking units within large media organizations. Also, they are doing a pretty good job, I think, but they need to be popularized, the checks. In the case of alt news, they are more than just fact-checking, they do good investigations. And technologically, they're quite sophisticated in the tools they use to detect disinformation. It's well known that generative AI already provides a variety of tools that can be used to aggravate and heighten the threat and the practical effects of disinformation. One example is toxic deep fakes that have already taken a deep toll of people's reputations and lives, particularly women's lives. Women journalists are targeted. We have it even in Tamil Nadu, and fortunately there it was cracked down as soon as it appeared. But this is a distressing phenomenon with deep fakes being used. And it's not always deep fakes. In India, I think this technology has not been widely embraced. Even shallow fakes, simple fraud, using old videos to assert that it's happened recently, and even changing the actors who are involved in this. All this works and finds common acceptance and leads to distressing results. It's perhaps less known that generative AI holds the potential to detect and expose disinformation and deep fakes, and thus mitigate the harms. That, at any rate, is the claim, but the actual results will be known only in the future, because that's 2 or 3 years down the road, we are told, that the ability of these tools to detect deep fakes. The challenge, and you can say the opportunity for professional journalists and media organizations, is thus twofold. Use AI to the extent possible without bypassing established processes of verification and accountability, and help in the fight against disinformation and misinformation quickly and effectively. The Hindu is a partner in an ongoing BBC-sponsored initiative called the Trusted Media Initiative, TNI, that seeks to do this in both well-established and innovative ways. As our newspaper's representative in TNI summits, I know how tough and complex the challenge of countering disinformation is. Project Origin, you can look it up, there's a website, in which the BBC and Microsoft have leading roles, is an alliance of organizations from the publishing and technology world that work together with an engineering approach to create a process where the provenance and technical integrity of content can be confirmed. Project Origin's ambitious goal is to establish a chain of trust from the publisher to the consumer, but it is still a work in progress. Disinformation aside, AI's vulnerability to what is known as hallucination poses a problem. In AI speak, hallucination is the unpredictable propensity of large language models, or LLMs, to perceive patterns or objects that are non-existent or impossible to human observers, and to make up facts and generate outputs that are nonsensical or grossly inaccurate. There was a famous case of AI, a lawyer's firm in the US did this. It cooked up cases that didn't exist. Some lawyers would be familiar with this. And that is the result of what is known as hallucination. AI experts concede that while several of these issues have been addressed and resolved, even in the best of circumstances, the use of AI tools can have unforeseen and undesirable consequences. It follows that this should make us pause and exercise caution in the use of these tools. Aside from the problem of hallucination, there is the historical baggage Gen AI carries of different perspectives and biases of other people's dominant but possibly ill-informed views and narratives. Reputed media organizations, I give the example of the Financial Times, the Hindu or the Hindustan Times or the Indian Express, and several Indian language media houses, they explicitly and publicly commit themselves, or they should, to the proposition that there will be human oversight at every level in the use of AI, and that there will be a professionally trained human at the end of the process. It's called human in the loop. Whether this commitment can be sustained as Gen AI becomes more and more pervasive in journalistic and news media operations remains to be seen. Unless the core editorial values are deeply and strongly secured within the news organization and in journalistic practice, the temptation to stray away from well-established professional ethical standards, transparency, protocols, and social responsibility in the use of AI tools, this will be hard to resist. The temptation will be too great as the process advances. You can already see the widespread use of ChatGPT by reporters, columnists, editorial writers, and others across the Indian media ecosystem. And we do not know the core editorial values that the Editors Guild of India or the Odisha Press Club of Odisha advocates are being respected in practice. We must ensure that whatever AI tools are used for generating summaries, newsletter links, translations, transcriptions, formatting, that the journalist takes responsibility for the final use of the output. Further, the adoption of AI must be made transparent. In every case, transparent to readers and viewers so as to ensure the integrity and credibility of the journalism. The company that published the Hindu and other group newspapers has a fairly comprehensive draft generative AI usage policy, which has not yet been settled, but it will be done soon and adopted soon. But the processes are already underway. To ensure the responsible use of AI, there are guidelines for transparency, explainability, and accountability. AI-generated content must undergo human review to check for appropriateness, accuracy, and compliance with inclusion principles, particularly gender inclusivity principles. Not just in India, some other media organizations abroad, particularly in Latin America, are very keen on using AI to at least monitor the performance of the newspaper in relation to gender justice. To ensure data security, only essential and non-sensitive data are given as input into AI system. Because we do not, the AI systems, the big companies, the big players do not disclose many of the details that should be public. For example, what they train on. And there are already lawsuits by the New York Times and others against OpenAI for, in effect, stealing their material, violating their intellectual property rights, their copyright, and so on. And we have to see where this goes. But the short point here is we do not know enough about how they do what they do. They are not transparent. So feeding sensitive data or giving them as an input into AI systems is a big risk. All employees are being trained on the ethical use of AI, data privacy, and security. We monitor AI use for compliance and legal standards, with periodic audits to be put in place to ensure ethical AI deployment. AI models are rigorously being tested through demo phases and proof of concept before being deployed in production. Fine-tuning and prompt engineering are applied as necessary. All this sounds very impressive, but the actual application, the actual impact of the use of AI is yet to be felt in a very serious way. You can say the impact at the moment is secondary or even peripheral in many areas, but there's but plenty is going on behind the scenes to see and test these tools. And I think in the Times of India, they are ahead. They've been doing this for quite a while, but we do not know enough about it. Only organization-approved AI tools through office accounts can be used by our journalists. Tools such, I'll come to this in a minute, tools such as the Hindu Style Guide, the Hindu Search Engine Optimization Guru, and the Gender Bias Analyzer are used to standardize content, ensure SEO optimization, and mitigate against gender bias in articles. And we use external AI tools, including OpenAI's ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, Google Vertex, Gemini, and Perplexity for these projects. The 6th World Media Summit, held earlier this month in Urumqi in China, had as its theme AI and media transformation. Addressing the plenary session of the summit, the Hindu's editor Suresh Nambat stated that, and I quote, "We believe in using AI to maximize the use and reach of existing content through translation and transcription, to personalize subscriber experience through newsletters and summaries, and as we go along, to generate news from clearly identified structured data sources such as financial reports, sports scores, and weather data. They will, however, not substitute for journalism that interprets the data and provides context and insights." He entered the important caveat that despite its transformative potential, AI's creativity is limited by its reliance on pattern. This I've already mentioned. Now I'll come to specifics. I requested our CEO, because it involves both business and editorial functions, to give me a note for this conclave on what has actually been adopted. So far as we are concerned, the Hindustan Times is also active in this, and as I said, the Times of India probably has a lead in trying to apply this. I don't know enough about various other media organizations, including the Indian Express, which is also quite active in this. But so far as our experience goes, I think it'll be useful to be specific. Obviously, the most useful application so far, and India, I think, is not ahead in this. India is lagging behind developed countries so far as applications of Gen AI tools is concerned, which may not be a disadvantage. I think we have time to review it. Going slow may actually give us some advantages in this respect. But clearly, the most important application is search engine optimization, meta description. We have integrated ChatGPT into our workflow to generate the SEO meta description for a given article when it is marked as ready for publishing. The generated meta description can be edited by the user or accepted as such. This is available across all our publications. And the core stakeholder here is the SEO team in products, not so much the journalists in the front end. It's in production, and it's clearly the most useful application thus far. SEO headline. The AI model will generate the SEO headline for the given article. This will be integrated into the workflow. To be clear, the headline is mainly for machine reading, that is search engine, and their consumers. And this headline will not appear in the article or on the page, print or digital. It's available for all publications, but we encountered some problems with this product, and it is waiting to be deployed. 3, News Digest. An editor can give a number of our article links to the engine, and it will write an introduction and give a summary of each link and generate the newsletter. This doesn't relate to core journalism, it relates to subscriptions, so on, and this is under trial by subscriptions. We'll roll out to editorial after subscriptions the department gives their feedback. News quiz. Custom GPT to generate a quiz with 3 questions and multiple choice answers. This format is based on a given article. The claim is this will help in reader engagement. And the core stakeholders are editorial and product developers. The status of this is it's on trial by Young World. It's one of our sections. We'll roll out after feedback. News poll. Custom GPT to generate a poll based on a given article. Core stakeholders, product and editorial. This is on trial by Business Line, a business daily in the group. Social media post generator. The model will generate posts optimized for Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, keeping in mind the character restrictions of each format, as well as the tone and nature of hashtags. This is waiting to be deployed. Video description, and this may be of interest to a lot of people, and chapterization. The model will process the video to be published and generate a video description, as well as to give the timestamp markers to divide a long video into chapters. And this has been deployed and rolled out for testing. Another interesting application is style guide adherence, style and usage guide adherence. The model, we have a style and usage guide, and the model will evaluate and score a given article for its adherence to the style and usage guide. And the core stakeholder here is the news desk or the news desks. It has been deployed. We received a lot of feedback, and it's undergoing further training based on the feedbacks. Podcast generator, again, maybe of interest to you, a lot of you. Convert an article into a script and generate audio code stakeholders. This is a challenging application. It requires a lot of training, and it is in the works. User needs scoring. The model evaluates and scores a given article against user needs models, and this is in the works, requires extensive training. And finally, audio transcription. We have trained journalists on using Google Pinpoint for getting transcriptions from audio files. And we are also building an app for doing this in a simple way. I don't want to suggest that the Hindu group is far ahead of anyone else, but there is active work going on, and a lot of these products need further testing. You need to get feedback. You'll get some flack, you'll get hallucinations, you'll get inaccuracies, and it's quite an interesting game, but a very complex game. And as I said, I think India is lagging in this respect. This is not going to be a huge problem. The claim that AI is going to transform journalism completely is, I think, overblown. I think a number of journalists are worried whether their jobs will be taken away, particularly reporters. I think if that's going to happen, that is not going to happen very soon. So I think we need to have more discussions on this, bringing in tech people as well. And a lot of the young journalists, I think, have the skills to do this. But it's an important area, and since India is not far advanced in this, we do have time, I think, to reflect on it, to do more testing and trials, and to the extent possible, get it right. So I just want to, I think I've taken quite a lot of your time, but I think I want to end on a note that people like me believe in the core values of journalism, the functions that I referred to earlier, the credible information function, the critical, analytical, investigative function, the need to serve as a forum for different views to contend, and the agenda building role, and we have to limit, and of course the entertainment function of journalism, of media. And I think the Indian situation, although it is disturbing in many respects, the targeting of journalists, the misuse of laws, there's a lot of other material which Van Ifra has put out, including the misuse of laws relating to economic offenses against journalists. There are case studies here. If there's interest, we can discuss that. There's quite a lot of research on these areas. So while there is room for concern, I want to end on an optimistic note, not just to boost morale, because I think that is the real situation on the ground. Given the way the political situation is evolving in India, I think the vast, diverse, and uneven, mixed up Indian media, I think we have an important role to play in the immediate and intermediate future. And I thank the Editors Guild of India and the Press Club of Odisha, their leaders who are here, for this opportunity, and also for holding the other sessions which we look forward to.
We have a 10-minute period for question-answer session. Ram needs to be thoroughly grilled because he spoke in details about everything concerning media, modern day situation. So if anybody has any queries, yes, the young lady there. Could a mic be given to her, please? Could a cordless we'll have 3 questions total. If you could please write down your question so that you are eloquent when you read it out, not be vague. Please.
A very good morning, sir. I, Jyotirmay Mishra, student of Journalism and Mass Communication from BJP Autonomous College. My question is that you talked about the central functions, that how AI can prove to be productivity in the field of media industry, and afterwards you also told how AI gives the undesirable consequences in the media industry. So I want to know how it can be productivity.
I think so far it has been productive in fairly minor ways, but since putting it out on the internet is very important, search engine optimization is the major advantage, as I said. So far as the journalistic tasks are concerned, of course you can get summaries. If you read if you do an interview, you can, if you're not particularly well prepared, you can get some ideas because it's got a lot of data. But the risk is that people tend to plagiarize. And I think a number of young reporters, they have to watch out against this, because it's very easy to, for example, if I want to write an article on what happened in the Lok Sabha election, and say, go to ChatGPT-4 and ask it to give me a 500 word or a 750 word or a 1,500 word, there are limits to that, the word length. It'll give me quite a passable article. And if I take that and put it in my copy, it'll be very hard to detect unless your news editor or supervisor knows that you're not capable of writing this, and suddenly something happens. So that could be the misuse. And I think, I have a sense that since ChatGPT is so pervasive in India also, quite a lot of people are using it. Whether they actually plagiarize or just import this stuff, I don't know, but certainly they're using it because we observe that. The other productive use would be translations. Yesterday, at a get-together hosted by our host here, I took a passage in English and fed it to ChatGPT-4, saying translate into Orissa. I can't read it, but my friend who read it said it's pretty good. He was very surprised. And if you ask AI specialists, not just for media in the world, what is the most beneficial use of AI so far? There are things like AlphaFold 2, where AI has been used to crack what is known as the protein folding problem in biology, detecting the structure of proteins. What used to take a year or two now can be done in minutes, and it's available free in what's put out, the tools made available by Google DeepMind. But there are applications like that which are clearly beneficial. But if you ask AI experts or people drawn from different scientific fields where AI is applied, what is the most beneficial application to date? The unanimous answer will be translations. And this will be of great use to journalists in this. And if you have a multilingual media organization, then this will definitely increase productivity. But at the end of it, you can't rely on it. You have to know the language and get some people proficient in the language to edit it. I think there's nothing wrong. But you have to disclose the fact that this is AI generated. This translation is generated by, and be more specific than just AI, say that ChatGPT-4 has been used for this. If you do that, then I think there's nothing wrong with it. Or if you send out a newsletter, particularly your business, your marketing people send out newsletters to try to get more subscriptions or attract more views, then there's nothing wrong with it. But if you use it to write articles without disclosing the fact that this has been AI generated, and also if you can't write an article just using AI because it's trained on data that's already there with all its biases, imperfections, inaccuracies, and so on. So if you don't verify it, it's no use. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but those are some of the productive uses and also traps that are available today.
I have one. I have always this other view, and Ram gave you a very straight, proper answer. But I got to hear from a friend who lives in Israel that with all this digital age, the walkie-talkies and the pagers burst. What happened was people who had put in their biometrics into their pagers, when they took it near their eyesight, and it reads the pupil. Even on iPhones, you see, it says facial recognition. It doesn't actually recognize your face, it just looks into your eyes. So when they took it near their eyes to open the pager, it burst. So some 8,000-9,000 Hezbollah fellows went blind with that. And those who had digital opening and they did it from their waists were blown apart. So that's the other side of the digital age.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Good to see you here. So, being a very seasoned journalist and part of the head of the editorial team of a conservative media like Hindu, so how do you see like that Elon Musk is openly promoting Donald Trump to be the president of America? How do you see Elon Musk is openly promoting Donald Trump to be the next president of United States of America? What is your view as the head of the editorial team as a conservative media like Hindu? So that I'll be very specific about.
Elon Musk is entitled to support anyone, but
How do you see?
but the extent to which he goes
Exactly,
to do it, yes, is extraordinary. And Elon Musk is now being widely criticized for what he's doing to Twitter and so on, the kind of politics and issue causes he espouses. And I think that criticism is well deserved, because he's an uncontrollable force, it seems.
In the future, we can hijack an entire system for this. The entire platform is hijacked for this. So we see this is the future.
The entire platform is hijacked for it. I don't know. I think Mr. Sanjay Hegde posts and I post, and I think we don't necessarily, we are not hijacked, I think. But yes, it is true that when he bought Twitter, it was seen as a poor decision, but he has been able to transform it and change the rules of the game for the worse. There's no doubt about it. And if you see what Alan Rusbridger, former editor of The Guardian, and others have written, they are very, very critical. And there's even a move to get off X, that we boycott X, but they've not done it yet, because X still matters. But in India, Twitter has a much lower following than Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and so on. The actual, and another thing, if you go to Mr. Modi's handle, you'll see, what is the latest? Is it how many million? Can somebody check for me? But there are not that many Twitter users in India. It's only a fraction. So I don't know how. 91.8. But look at the number of Twitter users in India. It's about 25 million. So all these are the diaspora. They bought. It's not just Mr. Modi. It's for anybody, including us. There are a lot of bots which are following it. But you have to be more critical of these numbers when you see the reach. They want to create the impression that, particularly with Prime Minister Modi, whom I know quite well, I think his approach seems to devalue the professional media, that I don't care that much. You know, journalists are not taken on board when he goes abroad the way previous leaders used to take them. So it's more social media. But is the actual impact what it claims to be? The social media, this has to be researched. And I think it's exaggerated, greatly exaggerated.
We have one last question. Time is running out, so quickly. Thank you for getting it drafted. Very good.
So my name is Saswat Panigrahi. I'm an independent journalist. I have worked both in regional media and national media. I have seen some very concerning trends. Orissa only makes headlines during natural calamities, and otherwise the state disappeared from national headlines. Why it is so? Number two, when Health Minister of Orissa was shot dead in January 30, 2023, Hindu featured the story in other state section. It couldn't make it to the front page. Why? And when revered Hindu monk Swami Lakshmananda Saraswati was murdered in Kandhamal in 2008, it was a single column story in Hindu. And when the Kandhamal riot happened, it made it to the front page flyer. Is Hindu anti-Hindu?
I think you can figure that out for yourself.
Yes.
The Hindu, editorially speaking, strongly advocates secularism and is very critical of any attempts to deviate from that. And we have plenty of that these days. And I think there are other newspapers also that take this stand. Not too many. No, 1 minute. As for Kandhamal, in fact, I was the editor at that time, and the story of a rape of a nun was sought to be underplayed in the national media. Maybe they didn't know enough about it. And I sent a very fine journalist, Dr. Parvati Menon, to come here. And I think missionaries of charity were involved. We dug it out. It was true that it was front-paged. there's no point in comparing something happened that it's called false equivalence. Somebody was murdered, of course it's published, but here was the story that had been underplayed, that had even been suppressed.
So that was- that was fake
Please.
news,
No,
sir.
no.
You ask me a question, do me the courtesy of listening to me, and then you can come back if there's time, now or later. So it was an investigative story, and to the credit of the Chief Minister of the day, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, he acted on this basis once it came out. And the matter was. Secondly, Orissa doesn't get negative publicity. In fact, in an award that we give, Sports Star Award, year after year, the state that wins, the state that does most for sport is Orissa year after year. And twice the Chief Minister came to Mumbai to receive the award personally. And I think also there's been a lot of analysis about governance in Orissa, studies which we have published, several pages. So I don't think you should get the impression that Orissa comes into the news. It's a great civilization. I know that Oriya is a classical language. There's a lot of culture, dance forms, and so on. I think there is a great deal of respect for Orissa, but also surprised that a fairly low-key political leader was able to win so many terms. So what's the secret of that? And there's been quite a lot of analysis published on this. We took, in cooperation with CSDS, they did some very good surveys. So be proud of what Orissa has done rather than find fault of about this.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Ram, and thank you for the time, the valuable time you have given us. We're really honored and very happy meeting you. You are a personality that a lot of us in the field of journalism look up to for your fearlessness and for the courage that you exude at every moment. And last evening I found out that he's about 17 and a half, 18 years old, because his talk, his digital gadgets, and what he sees in Chat GPT-4 and his whole demeanor is of a youngster, of a teenager. So I only pray to Lord Jagannath that you stay like this and be a light to all of us journalists. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ruben Banerjee, and the General Secretary of the Editors Guild of India, who's been just re-elected again with Anantnath. So I congratulate him for his victory in the election, because now elections seem to be the most important thing that happens in this country. And so congratulations, Ruben. And along with Ruben, I'd like to invite the panel, Mr. Tapan Mishra, the editor of Samaj, one of the oldest language dailies. I'm not calling it regional. It's one of the oldest language dailies in India today, 105 years old. And I would like to invite on stage Ms. Tanaya Patnaik, the editor of Sambad, one of the youngest editors, probably the youngest in Orissa for sure. And I will... okay. So now the stage is on to Ruben.
Can I stand and do it?
No.
Well, thank you, Tathagat. And I'm so happy, and it's a great privilege for me to be on the stage with two stalwarts. Tapan Babu, one of the most respected editors in the state, and a very young editor that we have here, Tonaya. Given her age, I think we will get to hear a lot of fresh perspective. And this particular subject of our discussion, being a journalist in a state, is something very close to my heart, because I think 60 to 70% of my career, professional career, I was a reporter, a state reporter. And essentially in my mind, I still continue to be a state reporter. So it's a great honor to be in conversation with these two people. Tapan Babu, we all get to know, we are living in Delhi right now, so we talk about so-called mainstream national media. And not much is heard or talked about regional media. And the subject of today's discussion is opportunities and challenges. Opportunities, yes. I would like to believe that it's advantageous to be in a state because of being a smaller place. You get better access, you get to know politicians and important people very quickly. I would be more keen to find out what the disadvantages are.
Pardon?
What are the disadvantages of being a journalist in a state, being a practitioner of journalism in a state?
Thanks. When we are talking about regional medias, I think I should switch over to Odia, because it will be my pride to speak to the audience in Odias, and those who do not understand Odias, I can in between talk in English or in Hindi. Particularly Mr. Ram, Mr. Hegde, Parinjay Thakurta, and those who have come, especially the press council people. अपन जो कहते जे challenges कौन Odisha is a small state. Literacy rate is not very high. Media is not yet fully developed. Media scenario is not fully developed. ता सत्य मध्य गोटे कागज एठी 105 वर्ष हला बंचिछि आपनकर 1866 जदि ओडिया जर्नलिज्म रा जन्म हुए ता भीतर जति वर्ष हला ता भीतर गोटे कागज 105 वर्ष हला बंचिछि with some disruption, that is Samaj. And Samaj once was regarded as a Mahavishnu of Odisha, like the Mahavishnu of Madras, the Hindu. At one time, I don't know now, I'm not reading too much of Hindu. Hindu used to write in its front page, India's national daily, even though it was published from Madras. I think that is still there. Mr. Ram will agree with me. Likewise, Samaj is also considered as a national daily of Odisha because it is the synonym of newspaper in Odisha. We have seen a lot of ups and downs in our long existence, and I have spent there almost 40 years. And my colleague there, Ashok Das, who is a veteran journalist, he has also spent very valuable time of his career there. The situation has changed a lot. Challenges are many, opportunities are limited.
So what are the challenges?
Challenges is first, the finance. The regional medias are those who are trust-based or family-based papers, those who do not have much resource base, they are not cash rich. Without cash, without solid financial support, it is very difficult to run a business like Samaj. At the moment, I am both in the charge of general manager and the editor. And I know when it is the end of the month, what is the difficulty to pay for the...
So it has finally come to that even paying salaries is a challenge.
Yes.
Even for Samaj.
Yes. You say just this month, on 29th, the 30th salary day, and 5 days after that, for puja, we have to pay the bonus around 2 crore rupees.
But I am told the Orissa government really gives lot of ads, so you should be having a good
And
time.
let me come to the point. National advertisement, particularly the corporate house advertisements, that amount is shrinking day by day. Day by day, that amount is shrinking. And there are a lot of formalities, the ABC figure, readership survey, all these things are there. Government is now the biggest advertiser. Maybe it's national government or state government. When you are a very steadfast paper, you are a very righteous paper, you are a very value-based paper, it is very difficult on your part to balance both the sides.
So you think that the state government punishes you for your
No,
journalism?
not punishing us, but you cannot have a free run.
Okay.
You cannot
I
have
get
a
your
free
point. I'll
run.
come back.
You cannot.
I'll come back to you. Tonaya, being a young editor, if you'd appreciate your fresh perspective, I think my biggest worry would be the quality of journalism that's practiced in Orissa. So what's your take on that?
What exactly you mean by the quality
You
of
think that the
journalism?
journalism is of cutting edge, like we are really practicing honest, virtuous journalism that it ought to be?
You're comparing it with who is practicing.
Nothing like.
So I think I will just take a moment to thank the editors, Gill and the Press Club of Odisha for organizing this very important
And
event.
Tonaya, by the way, has become a member of Editors Guild, one of the
Thank you.
youngest members.
So just taking off from what Tapan Babu is saying, what is the major challenge? I think somewhat connected to your question, I would say the major challenge for journalism and journalists in Orissa would be credibility. So there is a credibility crisis. I think all of us would agree. But it's not that all credibility is lost, but we're definitely going through the crisis, and this problem is not unique to Orissa. The kind of journalism you're talking about, there are a lot of times that the kind of journalism that is being done, I'm sure none of us are really proud of, but that is not unique to Orissa. If there is anything specifically unique to Orissa, you might ask me. But I feel, the entire industry is fighting to survive. He was talking about salaries, bonuses. This is a story every month. And like they say, marta kya nahi karta. So we have to do so many things which are probably we're not proud of. But I think that is a problem or a crisis that is being faced by the entire country as a whole. But in between all of that as well, I feel that, journalism is surviving. There are opportunities. I would like to focus more on opportunities. Otherwise, how is a 105-year-old paper still there? How is a 40-year-old paper still there? There's so many media outlets in Odisha. And this is a golden period for journalism with the rise and opportunities for independent and digital media.
So apart from financial pressures that you obviously face, we generally operating out of Delhi, we tend to believe that the assault on media freedom is happening only in Delhi. It could be far worse in states like in Orissa as well. What's your take?
Yes, sir, that part is there. That part is there. But if you don't have enough money, you cannot go for quality, you cannot go for quantity, everything else will be affected. If you will not give good money, you can't get good talents. We are running short of talents in my organization also. Because as per the recommendation of the wage board, if you have to pay a huge sum. So where the money will come from? That is the fundamental question.
So I have always felt, having spent years as a state reporter, I have always felt that a state reporter, a journalist doing his journalism in any state, be it Orissa, Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, wherever, I think we essentially are confronted by 3 Ps. One is poor pay, poor protection, and local power play. Like you are more vulnerable to local power plays. You got a taste of it, your organization perhaps got a taste of it last year. Would you like to recount some of it?
do want to really go back and, harp on about the past.
All they would like to know.
So what happened with us last year was deeply disappointing, but I wouldn't say shocking or surprising. I mean,
You were not shocked.
we're not really expecting the government to lay a red carpet for us and ask us to criticize them. No one likes being criticized, right? It's just that, when somebody's telling me something, there are a lot of times that I feel like, oh, I wish I could just kill them, right? But that's something we think, but the previous government just thought they could do it.
In short, for people like Ram and anyone who have come from outside, what precisely happened last year was her dad, who was the editor of Sambad, one of the most, he wrote 4 editorials against a particular bureaucrat. The police started coming, host of cases were filed, and her dad stepped down as the editor, and the police stopped coming. So it was pretty malafide.
So I'm sure Sri Ram is not surprised. I mean, this is something which we all should be prepared for, I feel.
I do. In the given context, yes. Present scenario, yes. But
will-
I'm very curious to ask you something.
Yes, please.
That was the earlier regime which got voted out. Now, I saw in the papers that the same chief minister was at one of your events now. Did you ask him why he did all that, why he did what he did? Did you ask him?
Of course, I did not ask him because I did not want to put him in an uncomfortable position. The fact that he came to our function, he accepted our invitation and he was with us, showed that probably he's realized that what they did was wrong. What they did was ineffective, and what they did was rejected by the public.
He didn't say sorry to you guys?
Does he speak?
I'm just very plain curious.
People have different, to answer you, no, he hasn't said sorry.
So this is something which I have always felt that whatever that is happening in the states, be it Orissa, Bengal, it was a very, very anti-media regime that we had till very recently. I can only hope that the new government will do better, but the picture has been pretty depressing. And we talk about what's happening in Delhi or in bigger cities. Sometimes we tend to ignore what's happening in smaller states. And Orissa has been pretty dismal, last 5 years in particular. So, and media largely being an unorganized sector, because I think most of our journalists who are in the districts and small towns, they are stringers. They do journalism. They don't get any protection. They don't get perhaps any salary. So do you think that there is hope of journalism being revived or good journalism being practiced in a smaller state like Orissa? Tapan Babu?
Just take the case of Samaj. It is a trust-based paper. It is run by a trust Lok Sevak Mandal, which has charitable works. It gives 1 crore rupees as scholarships every year to students, poor students, meritorious students, to the 3 crore rupees for medical and other purposes to the vulnerable people. In spite of that, we have 120 crores of income tax notice. Do you believe that our total turnover is around 100 something crores? And over that, we get an income tax notice of 120 crores, 60 crores for Samaj and the rest for the Lok Sevak Mandal. We are a charitable organization. We don't go for profit. Whatever profit we earn, we spend it for the welfare of the people and the employees. Then if this is the situation and the advertisement base is shrinking day by day, what will be the future? You just tell me.
Tapan Babu, you are hopeful that Samajo can survive this crisis? It will.
Samaj will survive because people are there with Samaj. That is the best thing.
Another, I do understand that there are host of problems that, challenges that we confront. We have no ready remedies. But in a state like Orissa or perhaps other states, journalism also suffers from lack of credibility. Like I remember when I was the editor of Outlook, we had done a story. 5 newspapers or 4 newspapers coming out of Bhubaneswar had the same story, same headline, same photograph. So obviously someone was supplying them with the stories. So, do you think we can ever salvage the credibility, the media's credibility?
I would not like to paint a very dim or a very dull, a very disheartening picture, because I don't think all credibility is lost. Like, 10 years ago when I used to go for these Vanifra workshops, they would say print is dying, print is going to be dead, but we've survived. Our circulation, although took a big hit after COVID for everybody, we've recovered and we have a constant circulation. It means that people are there with you. People trust you. You have that connect with people. Otherwise, like Enram was saying that, if you are running on a propaganda or you have an agenda, then, it's not going to be long term. So I'm very, very hopeful. There is a credibility crisis. It's not for us. Digital is a very big challenge, adapting to digital as a competition as well, but also as well using digital for, all the array of initiatives that he was talking about. So, it's a challenge for us to get that. But the real challenge, I would say, 25% of your advertisement is government advertisement. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was probably 6%, 8%.
So you would always...
So when that's 25%, sometimes even 30% on an election year...
So you will always remain dependent on government?
Yes, and for that, how do you get out of that dependence? Samaj is a charitable organization. We're not even a charitable organization. We are a commercial business house, a media organization. So the reader, the viewer has to be ready to pay for it.
How often do you get calls from the CM's office?
From the CM's office? No, we don't get.
Piling on pressure on you?
It's just too early. They're just 4 months old.
No, I'm saying not only
They're
this
still finding their way out. They'll think about media later after a few weeks, few months. It's not our turn yet. But I hope the previous presidents would be a reminder of, when something is, too much of anything is bad. We've just heard that forever. And, I feel like, the intelligent and the smart people learn from previous mistakes.
Robin, in previous government, there was pressure from government, what to print, what not to print. But in this government, at least there is some request, not pressure at the moment.
So they are requesting, not pressuring.
Request. And the second thing, for a newspaper of 16 pages, I have to spend, each paper cost me 12 rupees, and we are selling it on 8 rupees. And out of that 8 rupees, the vendor, those who are taking, they are not depositing every month. So they are going for one-time settlement in each 2 years. So there is a huge loss. It's a drain of wealth. So how an organization like us will survive?
So what do you think, what is the way forward?
We are thinking about it. I cannot do anything. The management is there to do something. So anyway,
let's make the paper 10 rupees, both of us together, we'll survive. Tathagat Babu is also there, the industry will survive.
So do we have a consensus here that newspaper prices will go up?
We're anyway, on the higher side, I feel, in Orissa compared to some other states. But like in the southern states, the number of circulation, it's huge. But again, it just become very, very expensive to print now.
Yeah, because the more you sell, the more losses you incur.
So. No, I don't know how Tathagat Babu is running. He is already 50 years old. We are 100 years. And they are closing up, and they have completed 40. Navin is coming up. He has completed 10 years. So the problem is that there is a very uneven competition among the stakeholders. Papers are running after papers, how to cut their throats. That is the problem. If you are cash rich, if you throw away a paper without a price to the reader, and you will bribe the establishment or the person concerned to get more advertisement, you will tweak the rule, then what other papers will do? They cannot do that.
You think that the newspapers are also trying to seek favors from the government for
Sir?
take favors from the government? The newspapers themselves are trying to please the government.
In the government, total advertisement scenario in Odisha is around 400 crores. Out of that, 100 crores is going to digital media. Then comes 300 crores. Out of that 300, you have to divide it among the English and Odia newspapers.
So given this scenario, what happens to the practicing journalists in Orissa? What do you think as an editor? What do you have in mind? Like how can the plight of the condition of journalists improve in this state? Like their welfare plus their professional, whatever they are supposed to do. Because if they don't get a salary, they don't have a regular income, we are actually encouraging them to resort to blackmailing and extortion, right? So why blame them?
So there are a lot of students here in the audience. Before answering that, I would say that, if you want to earn a lot of money, then journalism is not the profession for you, because even if you reach the top ranks, there's not going to be too much of money. And like Mr. Ram said, then you need to have that in you, that passion or that aspiration to make a difference. So when you're earning enough to survive and something else drives you, if money is the driving factor, then this is definitely not the profession for you. Secondly, obviously salaries should be credited on time, and I think most of the major media houses, they are paying the salaries, at least in Orissa, because I've heard of stories where journalists don't get the salaries on time. There is a salary system, at least as far as for our journalists and even their family members. They are all insured for health insurance. There is a bonus, there are incentives, but this is the most we can do. When we're struggling every month, the fact that timely salaries are credited to accounts, that's a big win. But after that, this is not a profession where you can earn a lot of money and compare yourself to someone who is in the IT or any other sector.
Another thing which I've realized from my time in the States is, like, particularly Orissa, stories are broken by local journalists, but the credit is taken away by journalists who come later from Delhi. So they take away the headlines, the limelight and everything. It's happened repeatedly, like with Panosh Punji, Kalahandi, Chobirani, that gang rape of 1980s. It's kept repeatedly happening. And I, as a state reporter, has always felt that being in a state, you are neglected because you are away from your publication center, the big media houses, and the editors really don't care much for you. So do you have this angst that though despite holding your fort, doing your journalism, possibly the nation, the Delhi, the big media houses don't give you adequate recognition? Like Samaj, but particularly by itself, is an institution.
Samaj is in a very tight position, like any other responsible paper, because you cannot bully the government, and at the same time you cannot tell the total truth. That is the.
So you are basically a tightrope walk.
You have to.
You have a tightrope walk. Be careful. What about what has been your experience been since post whatever happened to your organization last year? You are more cautious now?
I wouldn't say more cautious. So even in the previous government, so you have the opponents posting on social media, right? So when the BJD was in the government, the BJP would post clippings of Sambad in their narratives. And now even with the BJP in the government, the BJD also uses the clippings of Sambad in the narrative. So I think that is the biggest win for us. But secondly, I think we need to be smart about reporting as well. Let us just accept the reality, criticism is not going to be welcome. We just cannot do whatever the hell we want to write and expect no one to ask us anything. I think, we need to be where are our journalists? What is the kind of reporting that we are doing? Forget about the government. The pressure is there. Let's just accept that there is a lot of pressure. There was pressure. We were at 140, now we're at 155. It's not such a, big leap or something. The pressure was there, pressure will be there. But are we reporting from the ground? Are we doing enough investigative journalism? Are we talking with facts? So there have been times when, we just write or say something, right? So we need to be very smart about our reporting. We need to do first-hand reporting. I hardly see any kind of reports which are with verified facts. You know, it'll be difficult for people to question you. It'll be difficult for people to put pressure on you when you're reporting with facts, when you're reporting your language, your tone, everything matters. And I feel that we have to accept that we have to be cautious about what we're putting out on our outlets.
So essentially, we also have to get our act together, do better. So this is where Tathagat is signaling to me wildly. We'll wind up here. There are few key takeaways. There are huge challenges, great opportunities, but huge challenges for a regional media, particularly in Orissa. One key takeaway for me, Samaj, Mishra Babu promises will survive, will continue informing us.
Yes.
Tanaya, young editor, I think journalism will have a great future. Thank you all of you.
Thank you.
5 minutes question answer session, and after that I will tell all of you what is kept in the plans. It'll be a 5-minute question answer session, please. We'll go by timing, not by the number of questions. So if you have a question, please draft it and quickly ask. Okay, since you raised your hand, what is your name, sir? And you start.
Yeah, good morning to all. Very good session. I congratulate Tanaya, sir and Rubin sir. My question is, nowadays after internet, we saw so many journalism. Like all social medias, they are playing a vital role. They are creating nonsense news and saying that whether chicken is fast or egg is fast. In fact, I questioned the same question to one of the senior journalists here. Humbly, I am taking his name, Mr. Manoranjan Mishra. I asked him, sir, why these type of things are coming? He said, because viewers are seeing the question, viewers are there. That's why we are making the news. Is it wise? First. Second.
Brief.
Yeah.
One question, please.
One question. Do we need a regulatory for managing this journalism? And the second is do we need a seminar for the viewers also? This type of seminar you are conducting for yourself. Like what viewers is thinking about your journalism?
Whom are you asking actually?
I'm asking the all the editors.
Everybody.
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Ruben, you answer this.
That's a bouncer.
He's in entirety.
No, but then I do get your point, what you're trying to say, but I think we'll have to do constant self-appraisal. The media as a whole has to do and get its act together. I think it's self-appraisal and we'll have to find our way. There is no one single bullet.
Every time it is told that viewers are...
No argument, please. That's it. Again, Kontu.
There is a tendency that any anti-government news or views given by any media will be the darling of the masses. But those who deal with this, then they will have a dancing tune at the best of the government. So you have to survive or sink, that is your choice.
Any other question? You have asked. Okay, the young gentleman at the back. Quick question, please.
Sir, namaskar. My name is Malik. I am IMC student. Sir, गणमाध्यम लोकों प्रति विश्वास कमी कमी जाउछे सार कहते क्रेडिबिलिटी कथा ट्रस्ट कथा तो एथि गणमाध्यम राजनीतिर हस्तक्षेप दायी बोली आपण माने भाबुचंती कि
कोन एते जल्दी कहि देलो मु भी बुझ पैलिनी
सर क्रेडिबिलिटी केमिति रहबो
media is a big politics
घरे राजनीति हो मीडिया कथा कहउछो छाड़ नो आउ क्या हाउ at the back white shirt, what's your name? Roshan. Okay, Roshan. Quick. Yes, from there.
My question is for Ms. Tanaya Patnaik. Ma'am, what are the challenges faced by emerging female journalists in Odisha in terms of credibility, for example?
Tanaya ma'am.
Credibility for female journalists. First, they need opportunity. They need to be included. So I don't think there's a credibility issue for females as such. There's a credibility issues for the industry. But for females would be, of course, support from management, opportunity in the first place, opportunities for leadership roles, opportunity to be in decision-making roles. Don't look at me as an example. I'm an example of nepotism. But there are a lot of people who are really deserving, but probably our newsrooms are not ready enough to listen to them. So that would be one of the many challenges.
May I
And
add,
also maybe a pay
sorry.
gap, gender pay gap.
May I add one more line? I think Tanaya ma'am will agree. There is no gender in journalism. Huh? Journalism is either you are born with it or you are not born with it. Whether you have a nose to sense what is news or you do not have a nose. There is no gender at all. It's a gender-free profession. That's again? Yes, there has to be a nose for news. Yes. Okay. Yes, Paranjada. Microphone, please. This is the last question because after Paranjada.
I want to ask a
who
question
can
to
ask?
both of the people on the panel. In the past also, those who were in positions of power and authority, they were not tolerant towards their critics. Among the journalists, सहनशीलता नहीं था, सहनशीलता छिलो ना. Is, after listening to you, both of you, do you think the change that has today happened is that they are not just intolerant, asahanshil, they are now vindictive, pratihingsha, vengeful. So the income tax department goes after you, the chief minister does not apologize. So my question is that.
Dada, you were in that great political and economic weekly. You had a better experience than me.
I'll second that.
So we wrap up.
Again, 5 minutes. Sorry, Lani. Please, we have to stick to time because we are running behind schedule. Please keep that question in mind. In the next session, which will be chaired by Mr. Anant Nath, you will have the first opportunity to ask the first question, and I'm sure it will be earth-shattering. Thank you so much. We have a tea break now, ladies and girls and boys, and 15 minutes sharp. The time now is 12:05, so we start exactly 15 minutes later. Thank you.